Très bref rappel, A.Sinn, l'université d'Osnabrück, en Allemagne. C'est un juriste, mais il étudie les phénomènes, entre autres, de crime organisé dans une vision perspective, c'est-à-dire où on en est aujourd'hui, où on sera demain, et c'est un travail qui irrigue naturellement tout ce que va faire le gouvernement fédéral allemand en la matière dans les années qui viennent. Enfin, ce que les politiciens allemands sont capables d'en absorber, parce qu'il n'y a aucune raison de penser qu'ils sont plus géniaux que les nôtres. Mais bon, en attendant, quand même, on va dans le bon sens. Arndt, this is...
Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Okay, that's my last French words. I'm sorry to speak in English. I can listen to French for hours. No matter, I don't understand any word. Maybe my Mandarin is better than my French. Xavier, thank you very much for the invitation to give some insights from my last research, organized crime threat analysis. First of all, in the limited time, I would like to give you a brief introduction into my last research, 3 years research with a big team. Maybe it's the biggest research team we had in Germany after the Second World War regarding the organized crime. Why that I mentioned? I mentioned that because it's not easy to do research in that field. First of all, you need partners. Second, you need trust. And also, you need data. And available data all over the world is not so easy to find. And after you find the data, after you find the trust, after you find the partners, practitioners, prosecutors, police officers, research teams, then you had to put them together. And finally, you need resources. And if you have all that together, then you can begin to make research. But research is the key also for a threat analysis. Is the key for the policymakers, and is, last but not least, the key to be successful. If we don't have any research, if we don't have any strategy, we are on a blind flight into criminal policy. That's the problem, and so let me give you a brief introduction. That what you see here in the first slide is the last research project, and it needs 10 years to create that. I need 10 years to create that. Sometimes I failed. 5 years ago, I was successful. And we did a research on 3 levels. You see the structural analysis on the highest level. Then we go deeper with the target analysis. And then the last step is the strategy adjustment. On the first structural analysis, we have different modules, definition of organized crime. We have to figure out how the phases of organized crime changed in the past decades. Yes. After that, we have empirical analysis. We have the relationship analysis between commercial criminal law and organized crime. In the module 5, the analysis of police procedures and case management. Because the case management in the police departments and in the prosecutor office is a very, very interesting topic. How they deal with a case. Do they make a case to the organized crime, or is it because of the definition and how much resources they spend for such organized crime cases? Then we have the module 5, the threat analysis. I'm talking about that today. In that threat analysis, of course, we all in that room, all over the world, we have not a crystal ball. We cannot look to the crystal ball, ask the crystal ball, oh, please give me the future. If, okay, then we have not necessary to come together for such a conference. But there is some methodology. There are some experts all over the world. And with that methodology, I don't want to bore you with that, and with the experts, we figure out a little bit what are the next threats. And then in Module 6, we're identifying the need for the adjustment from all the other modules coming together. And in Module 8 is the police recommendations for actions. So, and we finished that also, the recommendation for action, and now they circulate by the policymakers in Berlin, in the parliament, and so on. And it's a very interesting what we figured out. And you see here on the right side, the development of a web crawler. Also, we worked interdisciplinary. Interdisciplinary means we work together with the Fraunhofer Institute in Darmstadt. They also are IT experts, and we analyze some key points of organized crime, translated that in a technical solution to figure out in the deep web and in the surface web some organized crime structures. You can imagine that's a very big challenge. First of all, IT engineers and jurists, they speak not the same language. We are talking in legal terms, and IT engineers, they're talking about in IT terms. First of all, we don't understand each other, but we worked together for pharmaceutical crimes together a couple of years ago with Darmstadt, so we had not that very strong period to translate our language for work together, but the problem was there's no data. If you want to create a web crawler to find structures, no matter it's a surface web or a deep web, you need also data to ask the system, is that right or is that wrong? Is that 1 or is that 0? So that was a big challenge. Okay, so now you see how we worked the last 3 years, and I want to give you some more instructions regarding, more insights regarding the threat analysis. The trends in organized crime we figured out with our experts all over the world are these 6. We find the networks and crime as a service as a big challenge. We find the digitalization, the exploitation of migration, the effects of climate change, the effects of global conflicts, and then also, last but not least, the aftermath of COVID-19. Organized crime is present in our society because it finds the breeding ground for all illegal activities, because it functions successfully, because it occupies social spaces, because it uses structures of legal economic activity, because it's flexible, adaptable, unscrupulous, and also organized crime is sometimes very smart. Organized crimes generate a high profit very quickly and can thus effectively deploy human, financial, and technical resources to achieve its goals. Let's talk about first about the networks and the crime as a service. What I show you here is data. And if I talk about data, we have to first understand all data we talk about today is old data. Is the past. What I understand from Xavier is to look in the future. What will happen? That is the next step, because that what I show you here is old data. Of course, we can also learn something from the old data, but it's too late. We have to anticipate. Okay, from that old data, you can see in 2017, we have an organized crime, 7% hierarchies. You know hierarchy, that mafia organization, you have a boss on the top and then goes down, blah, blah. And then we have motorcycle gangs, yes, you have the big boss with the big suit, and then you have other soldiers on the ground. That's the hierarchies. And 30% networks. Look, 2021, it changed. We have 60% networks, 40% 60% networks and 40% hierarchies. It changed, and it changed more. And there are some challenges for the police, for prosecutor office, for the law enforcement agencies. Why? If you know it's a hierarchy, you have to dig deep to find the boss, you find the structure, but you know something about that. If you have a network, it makes not sense to find every point in that network, because in that network also some ants. You need the key points to figure out in that network. The very important points in the network, they're doing the decisions in something else. That's the most thing we have to discuss about if we talk about the structure of organized crime. And fluid networks, that is the future, because fluid networks, they have a lot of advantages. Hierarchies, you always need violence. to build a hierarchy, to make it strong, the hierarchy, and so on. But if you use violence, then others can see it, also police can see it. And then it disturbs your business. So of course we have hierarchies, but the hierarchies will play not the biggest role into the future. Also, there are new hierarchies, especially in the internet. If you see child porn forums, nobody knows each other in such child porn forums. They change pictures, videos, etc. via avatars, via fake names, and so on. But if you go deeper, you see that's a strong hierarchy. There are high administrators, there are others. They have strong rules. They can pick you, send you out from the forum, and so on. So from the law perspective, it's also a challenge. Is that organized crime if nobody knows? But that group doing strong crimes, very heavy crimes, and violate a lot of kids. So that's also a challenge. Digitalization, next point. Of course, digitalization is a driver. All technical things very often adopted by organized crime, and we can see it. Crypto, money laundering, we see it from EncroChat case. Everybody in the room knows that EncroChat case. And to encrypt such communication, that's a very big challenge. The organized crime groups using that very often, and after we have 5G, then you have no chance to telephone tapping. You have no chance to infiltrate them successfully. Instead, you have a new level. I know in France you did that with the EncroChat case, but that case is not possible in every European country. We have the highest level for infiltration we have in the United States. They can produce such devices and then sell it to the criminals and then take all the information from that. But that's not possible in the European Union, in a European Union country. But to infiltrate, that's a very, very big thing to find structures and to destroy organized crime. Yeah, the use of technology is a key feature of serious and organized crime in 2021, and that you can see in the SOC. There's a serious organized crime threat assessment from 2021, and that will continue also with the artificial intelligence. That's here the last point here. You will talk about the artificial intelligence, but it's also a chance for the law enforcement agencies to use artificial intelligence, but on the other side, it's also a chance for the criminals. They're using every chance to make money. And a couple of weeks ago, we had also near my family a case. There was a case, a phone call. Yeah? And the phone call, woman voice said, oh, I'm in trouble, I'm in jail, I need money, and so on. Yes, and then I make it short. The mother, they sent, I think it was 100,000 euros or something else to a guy picked up that money. And she swore by God, it was the voice of her daughter. But it was not a daughter. Daughter was safe. But it was an artificial intelligence case. They faked the voice, make the mother very scared about the daughter, and that's the fraud. And we have also here, you see, deep fakes. Deep fakes also, it's a big, big issue for the next couple of years. Oh, maybe here, that picture on the right side, you see the chance of network analysis. We did that in our research project to figure out how many contacts have criminals in a dark web forum for drugs and other criminal activities, to figure out, is that a big case, is that in the network a big name, or is that a small ant? So also you can do some network analysis for the threat analysis. Then of course the exploitation of migration is a big issue in the future. Migration is a key factor in the field of human trafficking and smuggling, enabling the corresponding markets. There's also risk of migration being exploited for the establishment of new supply chains or the recruitment of new personnel by organized crime structures. You talked about the map. You showed the map. You see the routings and so on, and that is what we mean. And if we predict that, if we go a step forward, then we have to figure out which resources we need to prevent such situations. And then also we have the effects of climate change. Yeah, effect of climate change. You can today they're growing some drugs in regions. They have good climate for that, but in the future that will change. And if we can have a prediction for that, then also we have to figure out what we can do against that. Yeah? You can see, for instance, the illicit cultivation of coca bush threatens to expand beyond the traditional source of countries of Bolivia, Colombia, and Peru, and clandestine establishments where cocaine is processed increasingly prevailing in transit and consumer countries. So that's totally sure. It's not only for legal market, it's also for the illegal market. And also we will see that synthetic drugs will play a more role because they are not depends on any climate circumstances. That's also very important to know. Then the effects of global conflicts. Of course, the global conflicts, that plays a very, very strong role in the future. Let's talk about first Afghanistan. Afghanistan in August 2021, the biggest amount of heroin comes from Afghanistan, and then after they take over the power, the large amount of the world's heroin supply now under the Taliban influence. What will happen? It happened that in 80% of global supply of heroin in 2020. First, it's growing, but after they put that under them control, April 2022, the Taliban banned then the cultivation of opium poppies, and then, according to UN figures, production has collapsed by 95%. Hey, maybe that's a good news. But now the poor people in that regions, they cultivate the opium poppy, they have nothing to work. So what can they do? Suffer? Or maybe they are a victim also for organized crime groups for other things. They are not so religious infected for the Taliban. I think that's also a very, very interesting point. And then Ukraine-Russian war in 2022. You know, the Ukrainians, they give to the citizens a lot of weapons, not registered. And already I have two Ukrainian professors at my institute as refugees, and they told me already that weapons are on the black market. Already they sell a lot of weapons. And not only Ukrainian civilians, also the Russian army. Yeah, the Russian army and the Soviet army, they are well known for selling everything to make money. Also, and now the Russian army doing the same. So we have a big, dangerous markets now, and after that war is stopped, then we will have a huge amount of weapons. I see you agree, but what we can do? Not only talk about, we have to do something against that. Maybe some necessary measures. Also, aftermath of COVID-19, thanks God, that's over. We can sit together and not only in front of a computer. But that COVID-19 and all other crises give the organized crime a good chance to invest in weak companies. And as you know already 80% of all organized crime groups operating using illegal infrastructures. 80%. That means we are already undermined in the legal infrastructure by organized crime. And if the next crisis is coming, then they invest more, and then with money laundering and other criminal activities, our society is in danger. That's very obvious. Let me conclude. Also, you can search a lot, you can make a lot of research. We do not know enough about organized crime, therefore it's very important we share our information, very important we work interdisciplinary, very important the universities, research centers work together with the practitioners from the law enforcement agencies and so on. Otherwise, we have no chance. What we can see also is we are union-wide in the black flight. Why? 2013, the SOCTA, Serious and Organized Crime Threat Assessment, said we have 3,600 organized crime groups in the European Union. 2017, 5,000. 2021, no data. I asked officially the German government, because every European Union country has an officer in Europol. Do you know the amount of organized crime groups in 2021? They said, no, we have no data. So maybe there's really no data. What is the situation about organized crime in the European Union? That's bad. Or maybe they hide the data. So that's what I called blind flight. Ladies and gentlemen, that was a brief, very brief introduction regarding my last research. Thank you for your attention, and maybe you have any questions, and then I'm happy to answer that. Thank you very much.
Okay, let me make the very first kind of comment to your presentation. I can confirm 100% of what you have said. The Polish experience is exactly the same. I just would like to refer to this question of bankruptcies during the COVID. Of course, hotels were very heavily affected, and we have reports in Poland that big BMWs were running around the country with bags of money, and they were just seizing, buying hotels and these kind of facilities during the beginning of the COVID. So it is absolutely the case. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming here, for having me here. My name is Ryszard Machnikowski. I'm the Dean of the Faculty of International and Political Studies, University of Łódź, Poland. And thank you very much, Xavier, for having me here, because it's our cooperation lasts more than 10 years, because we met more than 10 years ago, and less than 10 years ago we have a first opportunity to be present at the conference in Paris. Thank you for that. It was interesting times, and it was the early December 2013, the beginning of the so-called Maidan crisis, and we managed to discuss what was then perceived as a future of Crimea during this conference. So it was really a great opportunity created by this person who is second to none as far as organization skills are concerned, Xavier Raufer. So thank you very much for doing that. I would like to talk about some kind of predictions, anticipations, because we have a conference Horizon 2030, and I will stick to this date. And of course, I would like to provide the Eastern European perspective. We are Eastern Europeans again. We used to be Central Europeans for 10 years probably, but now we are already the Eastern Europeans again. And to some extent, of course, it is also a Polish perspective, so sorry for this kind of a narrow approach, but I think that it might be of interest to you. It would be really not useful for providing some kind of analysis on the Middle East. You French have much better information and better analysis of this situation, so I just skip all these things. Of course, we are interested in doing analysis over the global issues, but I stick to the situation in the East and particularly in my country. I would like to talk about 4, maybe 5 if I still have time, factors or issues which I could just describe as kind of a concerns and threats, maybe 2 threats and 2 concerns. I will start with immediate threat, and it was already said during this introduction, and also Arndt was also telling this. We are very much afraid of the increase of criminal activity resulting from the situation in Ukraine. And I think that it will increase because our anticipation rather and a vision, not something which can be proved, of course, because we are talking about the future and you have many versions of this future. We are expecting the ceasefire in Ukraine war conflict probably in 2025 because each and every signal is telling us that there will be a kind of a ceasefire, both situation in the West and in the East, particularly in upcoming elections in the United States, some kind of a budgetary crisis in Germany vis-à-vis external Western factors, and of course some kind of an exhaustion of both Russian and Ukrainian armed forces are leading us to the conclusion that probably approximately late 2024, 2025, there are going to be some kind of direct negotiations ending with a ceasefire. Of course, it will be a kind of a strategic pause rather than the end of the conflict. We expect also enduring conflict in Ukraine. But of course, talking in this very short time framework, we are expecting that we will have a surplus of people who are having fighting skills and a lot of weapons. This is obvious. They are mostly male and they are mostly young, and that means that they are going to be the members of organized crime groups. They are already members of organized groups, but these groups are going to increase in size, in scope, and in activities. So this is some kind of a criminal activity which we are afraid for, which affects not only my country, not only Poland, but I think that all countries in the region. We should expect increased kind of human and drug trafficking, weapons trafficking, some kind of maybe provocations even in this area. But I do not want to limit this threat from the Polish perspective only to this kind of a criminal activity, because it might be also used to some kind of espionage activity and political destabilization in Poland. I just would like to use a kind of an example of Russian spying network, which was liquidated by Polish counterintelligence this year. I don't know whether there was a media coverage in French media, but there was a big article in Washington Post 2 months ago, so maybe somebody is familiar here with this case. And what is very interesting, 16 people were arrested during these activities, and 12 of them were the citizens of Ukraine. Only 1 Russian, 3 Belarusians, but 12 of them, they were the citizens of Ukraine, and they were young. They were in their early 20s. So this is very interesting how this Ukrainian diaspora may be used against, for example, Polish interests, because they had many tasks, but not only limited to some kind of a spying activity, but also some kind of political destabilization. You have to be aware that Poland absorbed in the very first month of the conflict 2 million people from Ukraine, 2 million refugees, mostly women with children, not male, because male were simply not prohibited to go abroad. And in the second month, we absorbed another 1 million. So in, let's say, spring 2022, we had 4 million of Ukrainians, because at least 1 million of Ukrainians we have already in our country as emigres, people who are simply employed in Polish economy. So it was a threefold increase in Ukrainian population. We did well, I guess, with our kind of hospitality. Some of them, of course, went further to Germany, to France even, and to the United Kingdom. Some of them get back to Ukraine when the war was stabilized to some extent, but still we have more than 1.5 million of Ukrainians. They are usually young. We have a lot of students. And these people who were hired by the Russian security and intelligence were just also some students among them. So this is quite interesting. The other striking case with this example is that they were probably run by FSB. Initially, there were some kind of assumptions that it was GRU or GU now, because it's a Główne Uprawienie Generalnego Sztaba. No, this is the new name for the old tricks, but probably they were run by FSB, and some of them were recruited by FSB. And as you probably know, there used to be some kind of a division that near abroad and Russia is FSB and foreign countries are SVR, as far as civilian intelligence service is concerned, and now FSB is running operations in Poland, so it is a kind of a significant shift from this point of view, not only for operational reasons, I guess. So as you can see, this huge surplus of young people who are skilled in warfare, also in cyber warfare, because it is happening. Recently, last week or 2 last weeks, a huge network of cyber criminals was liquidated also with some kind of support from Polish side. And they were, of course, affecting ransoming. Ransomware was used in the Western countries, so it is something which is happening, actually. It's not the future, but we are expecting that these activities are going to be much bigger than now. So this is our first threat and concern. The second direct concern is that, to put it frankly, and I don't want to scare you, of course, because it's not something which is applied at the conference, but we are saying openly we are expecting war with Russia. We do not preclude it, quite similar to war which is happening in Ukraine. Of course, rather after 2027, all Polish investment in military are the direct kind of an analysis of the Ukrainian conflict and the consequence of this Ukrainian conflict. And as we can create some kind of many scenarios of developments, but 2 are probably the most probable. After the ceasefire in 2025, which we expect, probably there will be the second round of hostilities, perhaps between Russia and Ukraine, maybe after 2027, after this strategic pause for rebuilding some kind of resources. But the second scenario is including the Baltic states, and that's why I'm putting the map of Baltic states, because as you can see, there is a huge strategic change in the Baltic Sea region due to the fact that Finland is already NATO country and Sweden might be NATO country. And the situation from the Russian point of view is very, very, very difficult, because there is this small area over Poland. This is a Kaliningrad Oblast. And of course, there is simply no connection. And Russians effectively lost control of the Baltic, especially around St. Petersburg. So there might be some kind of a strategic thinking if they think that they won actually the conflict in Ukraine, at least the first part of this conflict. And I guess that this is going to be the result of this ceasefire, because this ceasefire will be probably based on the basis peace for land. So what they grab already in Ukraine, they probably keep it. So they might think that if they were so successful, because war works in Russia, it is a kind of a confirming the rule of Kremlin elites, and it is working simply. They can be perceived as a winner side in this conflict. They might have some kind of hybrid or non-hybrid kind of an attacks against the Baltic states. Why? Because this is a strategic need from the point of view of Russian. And the second, when I ask my students why are you doing something, they are usually answering because I can. Yes, we can do it. So probably this is the second point. Russians can use assets in the Baltic states, particularly in Latvia and in Estonia, to subvert and to destabilize these countries. From the military point of view, military infrastructure of NATO is not enough to keep it militarily. Invasion might be, to some extent, successful. There is a huge Russian minority, especially in Latvia. 35% of the citizens of Latvia are Russians. I'm not saying that they are disloyal towards Latvia, because actually they are very happy with their passports of the European Union, so they can travel around the world without the problems. But they can, some of them, they can use as a kind of an asset for provocation. And as you know, this Russian land and Russian population, protecting of Russian population issue was also used by justifying the invasion on Ukraine. So this might be the factor which may simply happen. Particularly if Lithuania is, from the point of Polish perspective, this is a strategic depth. If Lithuania is endangered, I think that Polish military will have to be involved in some kind of a defense. We are realists. This is not to say that we do not believe in NATO, believe me, but we are realists and we do not expect that each and every NATO state is going to support us militarily. We expect, for example, that Portuguese are going to send us the contingent of orange juice rather than everything else. And we do not have much expectations from some other big countries in NATO that they are going to help us. Maybe Americans, I'm not sure, maybe Brits, but not all of them. So that is why we consider that if we are going to fight war with Russia, we have to do it almost alone, maybe with some support from Finland and some other countries, but definitely not from all NATO states. So this is the concern, maybe rather than direct threat, because we do not know what is the course of events in future. The third threat is the continuation of the immigration crisis, which is already ongoing, as you know. Now it moved to Finland, by the way, because it was a kind of a rehearsal in Poland. Then it moved to Lithuania. Then, maybe you know, it moved also to Latvia and to Estonia to some extent. And now they are playing the same card in Finland. I have a colleague in Finland, so we are now discussing the experience of Polish experience and Finnish experience. And this is a kind of operation, and this is a kind of a threat which is already ongoing, and it may increase. So this is a kind of immigration crisis coming from the east, but also from the Polish perspective, the immigration crisis might be deepened from the west as well, due to the kind of result of European Union relocation and resettlement policies. If they increase, and as you know, there are some plans, it might be perceived by Polish population as a kind of increasing of transfer of all these consequences of having a huge minority not coming from directly from Europe, from states like France, Germany, and United Kingdom to Poland, and that will inevitably increase the support for far right in Poland. So you have to be, I have to be crystal clear here that the support for far right and for future opposition in Poland, because now, as you probably know, we have some kind of a transfer of power, is going to be as well. And here it is directly connected to the fourth factor, because I'm running out of time, so I just try to be as short, as concise as it is possible. The question of the political reform in the European Union, which is the kind of attempt of centralization of the European Union, which might be perceived in Poland as a kind of a narrowing Polish, some kind of a sovereignty. And this is a card which is going to be played in internal Polish politics. I'm reading, of course, I read Western press, and now after elections there is some kind of a relief in the West that now Poland is a kind of a pro-European country and everything is going back to the normalcy. But I would like to say it is not exactly the case, because still the former or still running the country party won elections and has the biggest number of MPs in Polish parliament. They do not disappear, and their propaganda and some kind of a political agenda will be very much focused on Euroscepticism, because this is the key for future elections. We will have elections in 2027. And if incoming government, to put it in this way, will not be very much following the footsteps of a predecessor, that might change the political situation by the year 2027. And the case of Polexit, I would dare to say, will stand on the agenda of Polish internal politics and might be the case. Of course, you may say, well, if Poland don't want to be in the European Union, let them go. Yes, let just dispose of it. We get rid of Brits, so we can as well get rid of the Poles. But I think that this kind of a discussion and possible threat of Polexit will also affect other countries in the region. And we are absolutely not sure what is going to happen in the West as well, because we have elections in the Netherlands, as far as I remember. And Geert Wilders won these elections. Maybe he is not going to be the prime minister, because might be he's not having this kind of making a government with other parties, like Polish Peace party is not able to do it now, but definitely it's going to be some kind of moving towards the right, yes, and moving particularly towards the far right. And the next and last point, using the propaganda and agenda of the far right by the party which is not far right, actually, because former governing party was not considered to be far right. It was, of course, nationalistic, but definitely not radical in this respect. So this kind of issue might be used as a kind of jumping site for next grabbing power in Poland after 2027. I do not think that I can tell about terrorism, because, of course, the fifth factor, the fifth concern is terrorism, but, well, in France, you have so much experience with terrorism, so it would be simply rude from my side if I could lecture you about this, but we are afraid of it, and we are really anticipating the kind of a wave of terrorism growing in the Western countries, but also in Poland, because Poland changed also the population, and we still have, there are some networks in Poland which are uncovered now, connected to the global networks which are posing a threat to Polish security. I have to finish here, and of course I will be more than happy to answer your questions if you have some comments here. Thank you very much.